Just Energy with naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theories that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swing of a pendulum to the waves in the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. In the same way, things such as rocks and minerals vibrate very slowly and at speeds that are imperceptible to us. Living things such as plants, animals, and man vibrate faster and appear to be alive. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is if we take everything in our own universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita as she explores questions such as, what are we made of? Why do we get sick? How can I live a more balanced and whole life? Call in and talk to her and her thought-provoking guests. Send us your questions and get the help you need to move beyond any obstacle or challenges that may be affecting your life, right from the source. So stay tuned and explore your possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. We have an excellent show, really wonderful guests. We have two guests on today. In the first hour, we're going to be talking to Danni and Catherine Brinkley about ethical consciousness. And I have a feeling that this whole conversation is going to take on a life of its own. And in the second hour, we're going to be speaking to Dr. Marty Horowitz about mastering happiness. But before we bring Danni and Catherine on, let me just give you a couple of announcements. And so if you haven't listened to the show in a while, I wanted to let you know that my new book that I've been working on for a while, Dark Angels, an Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities, has finally been released. And if you're interested in getting a copy, please go to www.darkangelsbook, that's darkangelsbook.com, and we're offering a number of bonus gifts along with that. Also, this weekend is the Haunting Histories and Legends Conference in Jefferson, Texas, where I will be talking about ghosts. And a good friend of mine is hosting the Paranormal Investigators Conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. And actually, that starts today and goes through Sunday. So it's a 3-day event in Charlotte, North Carolina about ghosts and all those things attached to us. So let me tell you a little bit about Danni and Catherine and get them on the air. So this devoted couple works ceaselessly to champion the virtues of ethical consciousness in daily life through their written articles, live lectures and workshops, radio and television appearances, as well as their tours to sacred sites around the world. Together, Danni and Catherine are undaunted in their commitment to creating a higher awareness for the support and acceptance of the circle of life, including the celebration of transformation from this world to the next. Through their nonprofit organization, the Twilight Brigade, over 5,000 volunteers have been trained to be at the bedsides of our dying veterans. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Danni and Catherine Brinkley. Hi, guys. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Hi, Rita. Thank you so much for inviting us. It's our pleasure to be with you today.
Hi, Rita.
Hi, Danni. So, Catherine, we've only spoken briefly on the phone once before, and you're a new guest to Just Energy Radio. So, before we get into the topic, could you kind of introduce yourself, how you got into this whole ethical consciousness, working with people business? And also, I want a little juice, so how'd you hook up with Danni?
Well, that's the easy part. That's the easy part. I met Danni through a telephone interview back in 1994 when his first book, Saved by the Light, came out. And we had what was supposed to be a 30-minute interview, I think turned into an hour and a half. We just had such a feeling of affinity for one another. We just talked and talked and talked. At that time, I was working as a journalist and for a metaphysical newspaper based in Las Vegas. I'd been doing lots of articles and interviews about metaphysics and spirituality. That was that was my bent. Since I was a very small child, I was fascinated by things that I could see that no one else in the family could see. So I was tuned in from a very young age. All of that kind of thing fascinated me, you know, seeing dead people and fairies and gnomes and things like that. So after Danni and I had our first interview in 94, we met in 1995, and I have to say it was love at first sight.
Yay!
and she's still liking you.
Oh yeah, he's still liking me all these years later. It's a wonderful and beautiful marriage, and so we married causes as well when we took our vows. And I am now the president of the Twilight Brigade, Danni's nonprofit organization that trains volunteers to be at the bedside of those dying or in transition. And what else do we have to say about that?
And you're a sweetie pie. You're beautiful, sweet, kind, and loving.
Well, only you could say that.
Precious and marvelous. And I think it's important, Rita, that couples find things that they have a common interest in. I mean, some people play golf. What we do is do end-of-life care. But and half of our children are Twilight Brigaders, so we figure if we get 50%, I think we're doing quite well. But people need to find causes. They need to find things that they want to put their heart in. And since we've both gone through these kinds of experiences, we know what's next. So it's not it pulls on our heartstrings sometimes, but it's not as for a lot of people. It doesn't pull at us as much as it does a lot of people. But what we've really learned is that once you become a volunteer and you find what you care about and you find that passion, you really begin to lose fear of, our society is so fear-based, and once you lose the fear of quote-unquote death and you begin to truly embrace life, that's when the transformation comes.
I totally agree.
And one more thing I'd like to add, Rita.
Go ahead.
One more thing I'd like to add is that Danni married a woman with 6 children. So he definitely
well, you're brave.
a whole new cause there after being a bachelor and never having raised children. He took on my brood, and that's where our passion for helping people to live in ethical consciousness also comes in. We see so much of what's on the television these days and the reality shows and the families that are depicted and the way they are living in a consciousness that is not always ethical, and how important it is to reinstill those spiritual values in the family.
And the pride that people seem to take in not living in ethical consciousness is pretty amazing to us. You know, you watch these Finding Love in reality shows, and it's such hogwash. And so if someone doesn't hold these lights and hold this place, then we slip even more and more into this abyss.
Well, I mean, a lot of those shows are just fantasy. No
well,
kidding.
They call it reality, but it's made-up reality. But look where this consciousness has taken us. It's taken us to the collapse of our economy, to the collapse of our banking system, absolute disgust in our federal government, absolutely disgust in our state government, our belief in medicine and big pharma and insurance companies and religions. They're all collapsing around us. And why? For profit. The moment you add for profit, you begin to really see what motivates and drives people. And, Rita, like you know already, 1/6 of the entire American economy is based on you being sick. They don't try to
I didn't know it was
anything.
1/6.
They just want to treat. Excuse me?
I didn't know it was 1/6, but I'll take your word for that.
1/6 of the entire gross national product is based on you being sick. Well, if it's for profit, then all of a sudden you realize that healing people is bad for business. And then you really start to see the moral and ethical decay of what is supposed to be the most important part of our lives, being healthy and taking care of each other.
Well, I mean, I just, while you're saying that, I think of, Jerry Lewis and the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation and all the years he has been supporting that cause and all the money that has been going into finding a cure. But, we're talking, 40, 50 years later, and there really hasn't been any strides. And that's just one issue.
The money just becomes studies. And, it just becomes a study that has a certain outcome, but if it doesn't fit into pharmacology, then somehow it never gets published, or you hire three or four doctors who are working for the company that's selling the medication. And we now understand that the universe is electrical. We know that it's all energy. And since physical science has now been replaced with quantum science, soon there'll be no way around it. People will have to answer these questions from an energetic point of view. How does this pill work? If you know that everything is energy, how does this energetically affect that person as opposed to physically? And as we evolve toward this consciousness, we will see the even further breaking down of what we put so much of our trust in over the years, especially in healthcare.
Well, it just seems like the way society is going, there are no ethics. There's supposed to be like ethics in government. And when you think of different organizations and you think of businesses, your first thought is they're going to treat me fairly. They're doing things for the benefit of mankind. But I think what people are finding out is that's not really true.
Check your credit card interest rate.
Oh, God.
Oh, you've been a good customer. Oh, you've never missed a payment. Oh, you've done really well. But we're having some hard times because we made some bad loans, so we're going to have to go from 8% to 25% on you.
When the federal rate is only like 2% or something. And it's like, what happened to...
It's free.
But what happened to, like 3 points over the prime, or, they used to have those things, so much over the prime, and now it's like, 29%. Actually, we got a credit card thing in the mail one day, and it was a $250 limit, and if you signed up, you got the insurance plan, and you got this, and you got this, and you got this. So before you even charged your whole $250, you got started with $170 worth of fees.
Oh, my word.
And it was like, and I'm sure there are people that don't read it and just sign it. Oh, a credit card.
Oh, sure, come on. And it's like you said, how do you ethically trust that? How do you trust it? You can't. They have shown their cards, and look at this. Look at what's gone on. Look at what's gone on in the banking business. All we did was bail them out. Okay, and now we start to understand the difference between millions and trillions. And you think about where we are ethereally and spiritually and economically. Nobody in the world is ever going to pay back $10 trillion. It's never going to happen. So what's going to happen? We're going to collapse economically, and then a new currency or a new standard of a reserve currency will occur, and people will have to start over. I want people to start over in a spiritual sense. Kat and I work so hard to keep that ethical spiritual balance, no matter what else is happening. You have to keep a place in your own mindset that, for us, it's the panoramic life review. Everyone's heard this story, struck by lightning, dead for 28 minutes, completely paralyzed for 6 days, partially paralyzed for 7 months, 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. And I got a chance to see what the heavens were really like and how magnificent and wondrous it is, the world we left to come here and the world we go back to. But this life review that's seeing your life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama, watching it from a second-person point of view to see and observe the choices that you made. When you think you had only one choice, you see sometimes you made the best choice and sometimes you didn't make as good a choice as you could have. And then literally seeing yourself as the person that you had encountered, so you feel the direct results of your interaction. But even more important than that, Rita, is the sense of judgment. You know, how are you judged in this life? And it's like a Dannianism, but if divinity couldn't come today and it sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did divinity make? Or if God couldn't come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did God make? And I've spent years, Kat and I have a lot of conversations about this stuff, but I've spent years paying attention to that because I've had it happen to me 2 full times and then part of another time in the third experience. But when you put that as the system of judgment, I know that has changed me. And I know that when people start to really understand that this is what the basis of life is going to be once this life is passed, then it's almost mandatory that you follow that path of being that person that makes the difference.
You know, Rita, in our last book, Secrets of the Light, Lessons from Heaven, we took that concept of the panoramic life review, and we said in the book how important it is to do it on a daily basis, not for people just to wait until they've made their transition and they have the opportunity to look back at their life and decide what they could have done better, or the things that they did very well, those things that they were ashamed of, but to do that on a daily basis. And so to keep your life on course day by day by doing a daily life review at the end of every day, making amends the next day or the next week, not waiting for your lifetime to go by and then wishing you'd done things differently.
But you become far more comfortable with your life, and you see things that you would normally not step up to the plate to do. You find yourself stepping up to the plate to do it, you know, because you know it really, really matters.
But I think if people live their life with integrity and had, you know, that thought of, you know, ethics and kindness and doing the best they can given the situation that they have, you know, the world would be in a different place. You know, we're in such a money-grubbing, greedy, what can I get for myself? And, you know, here I'm just going to knock you down the hill because I want the apple at the top. And
exactly. The world, you're right, the world would change overnight if everyone just started living the golden rule. It seems that the hardest principles for people to grasp are the oldest, like the golden rule, to treat other people as you want to be treated. You know, the world has gone so far the pendulum has swung so far to the other side that we don't consider other people's feelings anymore, by and large. We just do what we think is best for us and ours.
Any thoughts on how we ended up getting here in the first place?
Well, people became, and I won't say capitalism, but godless capitalism. The mindset is the power of money as opposed to the power of integrity. And who has the most toys? We get so caught up in possessions that we forget about our spiritual identity. You know, you've never seen a U-Haul on the back of a hearse, so you won't be taking any of that with you. And we have lost that power of love and compassion and replaced it with how much crap we can buy and the junk we can buy. And we're now watching it happen in the emerging countries, India and Asia, as capitalism and the concept begins to empower and create their middle class and upper middle class. We're seeing the same things. We did it to ourselves. We lost a certain spiritual concept about our identity, and then we related that identity to a mental, physical plane of existence and a concept. We, like Kat and I, there's no place for us to go. We know that the spiritual part of life is the most important, and the identity within that spiritual part of life and how you express it becomes the real meaning of this life. We've learned that capitalism, as we now know it, consumes the consumer. So it cannot be good for us, and we hope that self-righting will come, but it doesn't appear so because people are paying themselves $100 million bonuses of your tax money, and the system is going to have to collapse. It's doing it itself. Just no one seems to be truly aware and realize that that's what's happening, but that's what's happening.
But I think people are becoming more and more away between the, there was the bailout, and then there was people getting these giant bonuses like, okay, your company just failed, and the government came in and gave you like billions of dollars, and now you think you deserve a multi-million-dollar bonus. It's like, I'm sorry, but if I worked for a company and the company failed, I wouldn't be getting my little $500 check. And people are just looking at it going, what? Which I think is the best question. What?
Well, I think you just hit on something there too when you say people are just looking at it and saying what. It's time that we went back to the old days, in my opinion, of protesting, of not just sitting back and wondering why this is happening to us, but actually letting our, stepping up to the plate and letting our voices be heard. We have become too complacent. But
too comfortable with not changing the status quo.
Well, that is being complacent. But I must say this, people aren't entirely to blame. We live in a culture now where we are constantly being fed fear and anxiety. On a moment-by-moment basis, you turn on CNN, Fox, the news is going 24 hours, the newspapers are full of bad news. Thank goodness for radio shows like yours, Rita, but so many other out there on talk radio that are constantly reinforcing our need to be in fear. So people, they're afraid to do anything. They just have to worry about paying the rent and feeding the children. They're not losing the car so they can get to work. And they're not really embracing the bigger picture.
Catherine, I agree to a certain extent, but, I do a lot of work with clients. And one of the things that I see as a pattern with people is that there's an unawareness of an issue. And then it takes them some time, and the awareness comes to the surface, and they just kind of watch their patterns of behavior. And they watch so that they can get a better idea of what's going on. And from that place, they will take a stand. And couldn't it be that we just have not been pushed enough, or so that, we as a people have not gotten to that place that we're ready to take a stand yet?
$9 trillion is not a reason enough to take a stand?
Wait a minute. The war.
Well, I didn't get any of them trillions of dollars.
Huh? What, Rita?
I said I didn't get any of them $1 trillion. They can bail me out.
Yeah,
I think we've had plenty of reasons to take a stand, Rita.
Afghanistan, Iraq.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, I think we've become complacent. I do. I think we've been numbed to a certain extent by all the programming, and people do need to wake up. They do need to step into ethical consciousness. They need to stay conscious.
So when you see on the news Mama getting arrested tonight for protesting up and down the street, don't be upset.
Those protests can be just letters to our representatives. I'm not saying that we actually have to take to the streets with picket signs, although it does get their attention. But we do need to participate in our government, and we do need to say when we don't understand or like what's going on, rather than just sitting back and say, gee, that's curious. I wonder how they did that. Do you understand what I mean?
You mean like Rita? The health care reform, where it's like they're just going to pass something and we're going to be stuck with it?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen, and we're all going to complain. But we need to stand up and let our voices be heard now. And if 1/6 of that money is being spent on health care, how much of it is preventative? Probably none. Is that right, Danny?
None.
This is all, to once you get sick, to put you on medication and or to do surgery
for the rest of your life.
And then you have to have medication for the medication for the medication because of the side effects, etc.
I heard Obama say, well, why have an expensive surgery if you could have medication to manage the symptoms? And I'm like, okay, that's scary right there.
It is very scary. And that's what I'm saying. People, that they're so filled with this fear that they're not taking steps to change it. And we just want everybody to wake up and be aware, just like you do, and then participate in the decisions that are being made.
Throw the bums out.
We might need to do that again.
Well, and this is my opinion, they were sitting there saying because I will listen to the talk radio thing because I just am shocked at some of the stuff that's going on in the country. Mm-hmm. And their comment was, well, you elected these people. And it's like, okay, but I might have voted. However, they're not doing any of the stuff that they said they were going to do that I voted for them for in the first place. So what's the point of voting?
Well, it's very important to vote, but what we have to understand is they don't even know what they're up against. They say they're going to do all these things, and they hope to do all these things, and I believe when they say it, they're very sincere. But once they get to Washington, they often step into a ballgame that they didn't even know existed, and it's simply not that easy, to pass the bills that you want or to move the legislation that you so believed in.
And they
well, it
spend
sounds
most
like
of their
there's a lot
money
of arm
raising
turning,
money.
too.
Most of their money.
Well, they got to bail themselves out.
They have to bail themselves out. And what you're saying, Danni, is that they're constantly campaigning?
Yeah, it takes
to stay in office.
And then you get hooked into lobbyists, and you get hooked into the people you owe a debt because the whole deal is we kept you in office. I mean, I spent 12 years in Washington. I understand the game and how it works, but it's got to change. We have to collapse it. We have to do whatever it takes to bring back this country. And it's a spiritual point. When you go and look at the Founding Fathers and what the Founding Fathers did and how they really, truly thought through this whole concept of the spiritual, mental, emotional, and material founding of a country, how far we've come from there. And another thing, like you said, Rita, I haven't seen one thing that Barack Obama campaigned on that he's done. He was going to get rid of the Patriots Act. It's still here. He was going to review NAFTA. It's still here. He was going to close Guantanamo. It's still here. He was going to stop people from having their phone records tapped and their bank accounts tapped without a warrant. It's still here. So we're. I mean,
it just seems like a continuation. It just seems like a continuation of what we had before, except with different faces.
That's exactly what it is.
The game is still the same. We just changed the players.
Mhm.
No, but you know what? Having conversations like this gives people a moment to stop, Rita, and to think about integrity and to drive those issues. And for those who do not hold that integrity, we have to vote them out. I think that what we're going to see in 2010 and into 2012 is a revolution. I believe without any question that there's going to be a revolution. And this Ron Paul bill, I think it's called 1207, to audit the Federal Reserve. I think, and since you're in Texas, I think that everybody should support and write their congressman to support Ron Paul's bill. I think it's House Bill 2007. Because if we don't start cleaning house and we don't demand accountability, then we might as well give it up. And the Fed is the audacity of Bernanke to sit and tell the Congress that not only did he send $2 trillion to prop up foreign banks, he would not tell the Congress who the banks were. And he said he didn't have to. And then when they said, let's audit the Federal Reserve, he said that means government would be getting involved in how they develop their policies. So I looked up the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not even an American corporation. It's from Puerto Rico. It's a Puerto Rico domiciled corporation with an American operating office out of Delaware. Interesting.
That's interesting. Well, there's the music, which means we need to take a quick break. So I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're talking to Danni and Catherine Brinkley about ethical consciousness, and we will be back after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
Are you sensitive to energy? Want to explore the world beyond the five senses? Looking for a new career as an alternative healthcare practitioner? Then the Institute of Applied Energetics, Medical Intuition, and Energy Medicine training programs may be right for you. Our comprehensive curriculum provides students with a deep understanding of how to detect, evaluate, and transform the subtle body, as well as techniques for correcting energetic imbalances that may underscore a person's ability to experience radiant health. So if you are sensitive to energy, contact the Institute of Applied Energetics right away. Be a catalyst for changing the way healthcare is done around the world. Visit www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and start your new career today. How would you like to live long and enjoy great health? How about creating solid bones and whiter teeth, strengthen your heart and eyes, and have radiant, youthful-looking skin? There is an ancient health and longevity secret that has been used for millennia in Egypt, India, and China that can help you achieve this. For the first time in the modern world, Pearlsium brings ancient wellness secrets to you. For more information about Pearlsium, visit www.ancientpearl.com. Before we get back to the show, I want to thank all of you for tuning into Just Energy Radio this evening. Many of the people I've helped over the years were listeners just like you. If you're at a junction in your life, don't stand alone at this important time. Call me or send me an email. We can set up a private consultation so that you too can experience wholeness in your life. To find out more about the services I offer, visit soulhealer.com.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and we're talking to Danni and Catherine Brinkley. Their web pages are danniandcatherine.com and also thetwilightbrigade.com. So, Danni and Catherine, I am sure you have heard on the news about the shooting at Fort Hood, and I know, with your work, you do a lot of, volunteer work with the military and the veterans. And since our topic is ethical consciousness, how could something like this happen, and what's going on?
Well, it's very easy. This is a major, and what you have to do is look at how many tours he's done. You cannot take a person, and a major, that means he's climbed the ladder. You cannot take a person, Rita, put him in 130-degree weather, put him in an encampment in the middle of nowhere, give him insufficient water, and not know who his enemy is, and think that he's not going to develop post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder. It's not going to not happen. And it's much like in Vietnam. When you don't know who your enemy is, you have no rear echelon. There's no place that you pull back that's safety. There is no demarcation line between the enemy's the battle line and the safe line. Then people never go to sleep. They're exhausted, and it'll keep playing. Well, you cannot drug a human being to safety. You cannot do it. And what we've tried to do is therapy and drugs. Sometimes they take too many drugs because it's not working. There is not enough psychologists and social workers for them to talk to. And then think of this. Nobody really gives a crap about what's happening in Afghanistan and Iraq, and 80% of the American public want us out of there. There is no moral and ethical reason for us to be in either of these places. The moral and ethical reason to be in Iraq is because we wanted to control the oil, and now everybody knows that. The moral and ethical reason for why we're in Afghanistan is we want to control the heroin trade. When you go from when the entire time the Taliban controlled the Afghanistan, they never had more than 64 tons of heroin produced. Now they're at 6,000 tons. So the world is being flooded with heroin at a cheap price. We're still controlling the oil in Iraq with the largest embassy. So when a guy sees this stuff, and he's only allowed to stop what, quote-unquote, a terrorist, but he cannot stop a trainload or a package load of heroin moving throughout America and into Europe and into Russia. And then he gets back and no one cares. No one cares. This is happening everywhere. It's happening in Fort Stewart. It's happening in Fort Benning. It's happening in Camp Lejeune. They're just not bringing it out. I heard recently that a woman that was a sergeant shot her children because they were the outfits they had on. She thought they were carrying bombs. War is insane. The way we handle war, and if you ask anybody who's been to war, they know it's only business. Have we cared one thing about the Afghanistan women? Have we supported any programs that support and help the women of Afghanistan? No. Have we supported the poverty? Have we given them new means or new tools? Are we building schools? No. Have we wasted trillions of dollars? Yes. Do we have private armies that are murdering people? This Blackwater, who has now just changed its name, and it's the same people running it, same people doing the same thing. We as American and moral, spiritually based people, we're seeing this. These people have nowhere to turn, Rita. Killed 12 and wounded 20, and then a guy walked in 2 years later and this morning in Orlando and killed a couple of people. We're losing.
He killed 10 people, from what I heard. The psychiatrist in Orlando.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We are watching.
Oh, you mean so there's another one?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the major in Fort Hood, and then there's somebody else?
A psychiatrist.
I never watched the news, so I never know what's going on.
Yeah, a guy in Orlando just walked in and killed everybody. But this is what's happening. We are reaching because since your show is about energy, and Kat and I are we're big Mayan believers, and the Mayans believe that in the final period of the galactic cycle, which we're in right now, we're in the final days of the galactic cycle, that all things not held in integrity will crumble. We are watching it crumble. We're watching what our men and women in combat are seeing as reality. What is the meaning? Why are we in Afghanistan? Why? What are we serving? What moral value are we serving? We have 68,000 guys trying to find 200 Al-Qaeda and Taliban. 68,000 of the most advanced, trained military. And what are they doing? They can't get enough water. They're sweating. They're in the middle of nowhere. And they have no true mission.
They're not fighting for anything they believe in.
Yeah, and they see what they're fighting for. So here comes a major. He's probably done 3 tours. He was probably in Kosovo. He was probably in Serbia. And then to be a major, and then then Iraq a couple of tours. Then Afghanistan is a couple of tours, and he comes home, and nobody cares. All he wanted to do is shut up and take his drugs. Well, there's a point where your ethical, moral, and spiritual identity will defend itself. We have just created weaponized perspectives as a way of doing this defense. But this is to wake us all up, Rita. Mm-hmm. We must all stop and see what we're doing. We are not fighting any heroic war. We're not stemming the red tide. All we're doing is doing business and killing our children in a way to further aims of one world governments and world control. The best thing that I can say about it, people who read Saved by the Light, they don't win. I believe in this next 2 years there will be a revolution, and I think that they're aware of it. That's why they're creating all these compounds, and they're building all these places in case people start to riot to maintain control. And then they'll throw a couple of...
I don't think they're big enough.
And then they'll throw a couple of pandemics on us, and the next thing you know, we'll be scurrying like rats. But I just don't believe it. I agree with you. The deep moral sense of the spiritual nature of the human being is greater and more powerful than some dictatorial psychological control based on fear.
I mean, I think it's interesting.
Your radio show.
I think it's interesting. They went in there. It's not about the oil, but whatever. But then oil prices don't come down. It's like, okay, well, who has all the money? That was the question. That was my question last year. Actually, I had Jim Mars on the show, and all the governments around the world are going bankrupt. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so if nobody has, if everybody's broke, then who has all the money? Other than it might be in an offshore Cayman bank account somewhere. But, if money is energy, then where is all that energy going?
Multinational companies. They just keep moving it and controlling.
So do you see the war as being just, you've kind of answered this, the symptom of a bigger problem that's going on the planet? Is it going to be big business against the people? Or
exactly. It's going to be big business against the people. And this is years of it. You got to remember, we're doing a 2012 teleseminar, and it comes on Wednesday. I don't know quite, how do you go to sign up, Mama? Do they go to...
They can just go to Danni and Catherine, or, yeah.
Go to Danni and Catherine. We just had Jim on.
Jim Mars.
And he's so wonderful. God, was he wonderful.
I love Jim.
He's so wonderful, and he's so straightforward. But here's where we are. It's multinational companies. And if they can control, there are only three gods. And there are three gods, and once you recognize the three gods, you can pin down what's happening in any part of the world. God number one, fossil fuels. God number two, gold. God number three, drugs. Any place that you are at war and you're having these issues, it's going to be one of those three or a combination of those three that's going to be affecting policy. Fossil fuels, gold, and drugs, legal or illegal. And when you look at these are the things that control and dominate where we are and what we're doing. What we have to get back to is our spiritual inclination. If God couldn't come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did God make? For me and Kat, we're at the bedside. God couldn't come today to a veteran that's lying in that hospital bed. No one's come to see him in 5 years. We're there. So for me, what I believe to have seen in the Panoramic Life Review and going through three of these, we really walk this walk. We talk it, but we walk it. And I'm begging everybody to find a cause. Find something that's important. That means that takes not just your money. Don't throw money at it. Go and touch it. If it's nothing but cleaning out your closet and going down and taking that stuff to a women's shelter, a children's shelter, but doing it yourself. Go in and smell the air and feel the energy and smile at someone and get involved in these things. Don't cocoon and isolate ourselves from each other. I mean, why we do this 2012 conference, and it's really exciting.
Talk a little bit about that conference. What's the theme of it?
Well,
kind of spend a little time talking about it.
We put a lot of pictures of me up where people can see me, but other than
that, Rita, it's a 6-week conference. We just had our second one this past Wednesday. As Daniel said, Jim Mars was our fabulous special guest.
He was so good.
I wish it's only an hour from 6 to 7. We could have gone 2 or 3 hours with Jim Mars. He has so much information to share. But if they go to Danni and Catherine, they can sign up. They can read the flyer. But we're going to be talking for the next 4 weeks. We have 4 weeks left with Sean David Morton, with William Henry, Lynn Andrews, and Dr. Meg Blackburn-Losey about 2012. We want people to know what is happening. This is a real event. And unlike the movie that comes out tonight and that shows the total destruction of the world, from what I understand.
That's the part I like. I like for everything to be destroyed.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it is not going to be like that. But people need to get the facts, and these wonderful guests are all experts in their field, and they'll be able to share with us what's going to be happening or the possibilities and the potentials over the next 2 to 4 years. So I really encourage everyone to come on board and sign up for this teleconference. It's 6 to 7 on Wednesday evenings, and if they missed the first 2, they're still online to be downloaded, and it's a lot of terrific knowledge is going to be shared.
And you know,
see, I just want to know if. All right, I have to make a comment, but I just want to know if, when 2012 comes, that, the banking system's going to be wrecked, or, some major thing's going to happen. Because if it is, I want to charge up my credit cards and just kind of go nuts for a little while. As opposed to being this ethical, bill-paying person.
We're supposed to stay ethical perspective because.
Well, I know, but.
But still, remember, for a male it's 72.4 years. For a female it's 76.2 years. That's the life expectancy. When you compare that amount of time to eternity, then you all of a sudden get a grip, Rita, on what your focal point is. That's a drop in the bucket in time, and you're going to be you forever. And the purpose of being here is to hold that line, to keep that light lit for those people who are struggling to find consciousness, who are struggling based on the religions have failed them, the bankers have failed them, their friends have failed them, the medical professions failed them, their institutions have failed them. And now who have they got? They have their neighbors. They have their friends. They have the people who they can turn to. And we have to meet that. We have to support each other and to help each other and to find that place again, or else as a world we're doomed. And who doomed us? We did.
We did.
So I know that the system will collapse. Why? Because if you just put it into perspective, 1 million seconds is 12 years. 1 trillion seconds is 30,000 years. If you put it in a measure of seconds and you look at what the real crisis is and the undercurrent of health, in the undercurrent of our financial system, it's something called a derivative. It's called a derivative. It wasn't bundled mortgages. It wasn't all that. That just set off the collapse. But there is $562 trillion worth of derivatives, which means absolutely nothing. A derivative was ability to spread your risk across a broader base and keep repackaging it as a derivative. $562 trillion worth of nothing that people are borrowing and using as collateral on the international monetary market system. This is what the problem is. We will never, ever pay back $562 trillion. We will never pay back the $9.6 trillion that we have now as a debt. So the new system is coming. Thankfully we have the Mayans, and thankfully we have the Olmecs and the calendars, and by taking the time to look at it and listen to it, we see how we will bend and how we will move forward throughout this period. For Kat and I, it's a little scary, but it's also exciting to be here at this time. And another thing too, Rita, we don't get too frightened. We go to Maya land. We go to Maya land. We go down to look at the Mayans. We go to Tehuacan in Mexico. I mean, we go again when do we go, honey?
In January.
We go in January. We take small groups of people, no more than 20, and we go and explore. I call them the kick the tires tours, like buying a used car. You keep hearing about it. Well, why not go and see it? So for people who are interested in that, they need to go on Danni and Catherine, or just punch in my name, and go and look at that and see if they're interested.
And go on the tour. So what kind of things do you guys do on the tour?
Well,
other than go look at the really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, we look at the really cool stuff in the Yucatan. We make many stops at all the different sites, and we do ceremonies and processes at each site. And the same thing in Teo, we stay at one place for 5 days, and we visit the site on a daily basis. This is an incredible site, just 40 miles outside of Mexico City. I think they've only uncovered 1/5 of what's there, and it's mind-blowing what you can see. At one time, this was a university that housed over 250,000 people. So there's so much to be learned from these visits. And like Daniel said, you actually kick the tires. You get to stand on sacred ground. You get to touch, the altars and the temples. And we teach people how to think like Mayans. They're extraordinary tours. They're totally life-changing.
Wow.
You should join us.
Maybe it could happen.
We moderately price these things too. We have good connections and good friends because we've been going for years. Because to see the same thing 25 times, you would think it would be boring, but it's not. You see something. But I'll tell you what is the coolest thing, the most amazing thing for us, Rita, is this: watching ordinary American citizens who have no idea other than it's Catherine and I going, and everybody knows we're fun. But people going, and we watch the transition in them because they're not reading about it in a magazine. They're not hearing somebody else tell them about it. They are there witnessing it, living it, and practicing it themselves. We see this, and we sit at night after each day on the tour. We sit at night and talk about it, and to know that we're affecting people's lives in the way that we are, and how we laugh, and who we have to babysit, and then who we see become growing from it. It's a real treat for us to watch people grow and expand their consciousness and come back and start making a difference.
That is so cool. I've never gone on one, on any of those kind of retreats, but it's been the last year or so that it's just been bugging me. A couple of weeks ago I had
up on something, and you need to run your credit card up.
Running up on that.
And absolutely, if that small voice within has been telling you to do these kind of retreats, you definitely need to come on one, and I think ours is where you should start.
I had Giorgio Zukalos, who works with Eric Von Donigan, on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling him, it's like, God, I wish I had your job. I'd get to go to all these places and touch all of this stuff. And, They have apparently a couple of things coming up, and one was to Easter Island. And I'm like, I don't know. There's something about that place that just calls to me.
Well, I guess it's the last remnants of Mu. I mean, it's the old Lemurian, one of the last of the Lemurian outposts. I've been there, and it's pretty remarkable. But, those people created such magnificent monuments, but they cut down all the trees. So once they cut down all the trees, they make and build great monuments, but they didn't have sense enough that the trees were the key to their survival. And once they cut down all the trees, a bunch of little rocks standing up looking out over the water was not very impressive to me. But everybody has that place that calls them, and I'm supportive. I didn't mean to, bust your bubble on Easter Island, but I believe that everybody has a place that calls them at this particular time, because if you look at the energy that's passing through us and
that we're passing through,
the galactic center of how our planet is, our sun is moving into the galactic center of the galaxy, and how these particles of what's called cosmic energy, because they have no better name, it's affecting us. And then if we have the solar flares starting next year for 2010, 11, and 12, then we're going to be a very interesting and precarious situation.
So how do you think it's going to play out? I mean, there's the world's going to blow up. There are the we're going to make this spiritual transformation, but on a physical level, nothing's going to happen. I mean, my belief is that we can choose. It can either be easy or it can be hard. We can make the transformation and become ethical and conscious, or we can get our butts kicked. And the choice is ours. How do you guys see it playing out?
Well, we see...
Or hope that it will play it out.
Well, hopefully it'll play out just like you said, but there
I
is
hope the whole place blows up.
Well, there is potential for that, and that's one of the things that people have to realize, that as we come to Galactic Center and we are constantly being bombarded or flooded with this energy that Danni spoke of. I read the other day that a lot of scientists are calling it torsion wave energy. It's taking a tremendous toll on people. They find themselves feeling out of balance, being depressed, fatigue. A lot of people walk around with flu-like symptoms just because this energy is so unfamiliar and it has such a tremendous impact on us. But to answer your question, it could be easy or it could be hard. But what people need to understand is we have the ability as spiritual beings to make a difference even in this process. As the world reaches Galactic Center, the possibility of us shifting on our axis is very real. It has happened 171 times before on this planet. No, it's 171. And
well, let's hope it happens again.
But because it's never happened, I mean, this is unprecedented for humankind to be here and to have the knowledge that if we hold the highest thoughts, that if we strive to raise our vibration, we can individually and collectively, we can actually hold the world's stability as we move through Galactic Center. We can actually keep it from shifting on its axis or doing too much damage if it decides to do that anyway. We can make the difference, Rita.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get back to you running those credit cards up. So the answer to running those credit cards up is absolutely not, because it might cause Las Vegas to sink, and then California will fall off into the ocean, and then I'll have beachfront property. We don't
I'm in Dallas, and, it's like, okay, well, that the Gulf could just come up right to my front door. That would be nice, nice little, get some nice shrimp.
That'll be great, but this is the place where the lightheartedness of this is what makes the true spiritual being. I always have a saying, if it ain't funny, it ain't spiritual. And
That's
if it
right.
can't make me laugh, then it's not spiritual, because even through all the pain and the anguish that I've gone through these years and still deal with it, I find such humor in the spiritual world and the things that I think about. And I think it's what the best part about it is, especially when Catherine gets mad at me, and she makes that face, that legendary fable face, I can still turn away and smile and laugh, because I have seen another place that's just as wonderful, not as wonderful as she is, but it's a lot easier.
There's the music, guys, which means we have to go. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Rita.
We love you, too. Danni and Catherine Brinkley, their website is DanniandCatherine.com and TheTwilightBrigade.com. Go to their thing in Mexico in January, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's right, that's www.soulhealer.com. Balance in all things is critical to maintaining health. In the hectic drive of today's world, many of us forget to take care of our most important asset, ourselves. At ProductsForTheSoul.com, we want to support your effort to nurture yourself. We offer a wide variety of herbs, supplements, and high-quality, ready-to-eat, all-natural foods. We even have guilt-free chocolates. Best of all, our products are delivered straight to your door. It's time to start loving yourself. Visit ProductsForTheSoul.com and start loving yourself today. You can get a copy of Dr. Rita's latest book, Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, by visiting www.soulhealer.com. Get your copy today.